I'm Alyssa, 32. The day I got a text telling me not to contact my own family ever again, I realized just how replaceable I'd become, the financial backbone who was suddenly cut off. If you were standing in my shoes at 32, would you keep reaching out, or would you walk away for good? I'm curious where your line would be. It was a Wednesday morning, early January in Brooklyn, the kind of cold that seeps through your scarf and straight to the bone. I was staring at the Manhattan skyline from my office's floor-to-ceiling windows, my mind already juggling numbers for 3 different clients, when my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a calendar alert or a reminder from Jenna, my assistant. Instead, there it was, a group text from my mother, Marilyn. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." 13 words, not a single emoji, no explanation. The screen blurred as I read it twice, then 3 times. My fingers turned cold even though I was inside and the heat was humming. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I sat in my ergonomic chair, staring, willing a follow-up message, anything to soften the blow, but nothing came. I should have known this was coming. For as long as I can remember, I was the one patching holes in our family boat, bailing water with my bare hands while everyone else just lounged on deck. But even so, this being banished by group text hit in a way I wasn't ready for. It was only 8 o'clock. My first call with a client was at 9. My hands shook as I tried to dial my mother back, thumb slipping on the glass. Straight to voicemail. I tried my father, Gregory. No answer, just the familiar sound of his canned greeting. I called Ethan, my brother, then Brianna, then Logan. One by one, each call rang and rang until the machine picked up. Nobody picked up. Not one. I could feel a knot tightening in my stomach, the kind that used to form back in Paramus when I was 12 and the mortgage was overdue again. I remembered standing in our kitchen, fake wood cabinets, always one light bulb flickering, watching my mother pay bills with a cigarette dangling from her lips, sighing. "Alyssa, can you grab the checkbook?" I always could. I always did. In those moments, I was already the responsible one, the numbers girl. My siblings, Ethan, Brianna, and Logan, were the golden children. Ethan had a new mountain bike every birthday. Brianna was in dance camp 3 summers running. Logan got a video game console so he'd stay quiet while the grown-ups talked. Me, I was praised for being low maintenance. Translation: I made do. I helped. I didn't complain. The older I got, the more I learned how little low maintenance really meant to them. It was convenient for everyone. I took extra shifts at the grocery store at 16. Nobody asked why I never had time for after-school clubs. I'd sit at the kitchen table after dinner, counting out cash for groceries while my siblings watched cartoons. It was normal, or so I told myself. Even after I left for Rutgers, graduating with honors, I still felt tethered to that house on Oakwood Drive, always one emergency away from being summoned home. And once I landed my first job in Brooklyn, the requests for help started rolling in like clockwork. First, it was $2,400 to help pay the mortgage, then $1,800 for Ethan's car repairs. Later, $3,600 for Brianna's influencer classes. I wrote the checks, made the transfers, promised myself it was temporary. But today, none of that history mattered. One short message and the line was cut. I sat, frozen, the skyline blurring beyond my window. My heart felt like it was folding in on itself. After 5 minutes, I finally did what I hadn't done in years. I called Uncle Frank. He picked up on the 3rd ring, voice gruff but warm. "Alyssa, you okay?" he asked. For a second, I couldn't answer. I just listened to his breathing, that old steady presence. "Did you know about this?" I managed to say. He sighed. "There was a family meeting last night. They didn't invite you. I told them not to do it this way, but..." His voice trailed off. That was the moment it all clicked. I wasn't just cut off financially, I was erased. All those years patching the boat, all those transfers, all those birthdays spent working instead of celebrating, and I was still the one tossed overboard. I set the phone down and stared at the group text, the words cold and final. The morning sun crept up the glass, hitting my reflection. For the first time, I saw a woman who wasn't the fixer, the doer, the family's built-in safety net. I saw someone lost at sea. When I look back now, I realize the warning signs were always there. Not the kind you see on TV, the big dramatic family arguments, but the small everyday things. The uneven split of chores. The way my father's laughter would ring through the house when Ethan told a joke but would barely crack a smile at my report card. The kitchen always bustling with Brianna's friends and birthday cakes, while I spent Saturdays clipping coupons with my mother. Our house looked picture-perfect from the outside: 2 stories, blue shutters, a manicured lawn. But inside the fridge was always half empty, and there was a drawer in the kitchen filled with overdue bills. Even as a kid, I learned to keep that drawer organized: insurance in front, utilities in the back, mortgage statements in a Ziploc bag. My mother would call me her little accountant. I thought it was praise. My father, Gregory, had a new big idea every season: landscaping, then a restaurant supply company, then something about exporting auto parts. Each one started with promise and ended with a stack of unpaid invoices. He never seemed worried. "This time we're closeless," he'd say, ruffling my hair. "You'll see." Meanwhile, my mother, Marilyn, kept up appearances. Designer handbags from outlet stores, high heels worn only to church, and a line of lipsticks on the bathroom counter. She was always hosting some kind of gathering: a baby shower, a neighborhood BBQ, complete with platters from the local ShopRite, and a pristine living room. I learned to smile for photos even when my stomach growled. Ethan, 2 years younger than me, was the golden boy. Athletic, loud, always with a crowd of friends. He never worked a day in high school. He had a new mountain bike every birthday and a car at 17. My parents cheered at his football games, snapped pictures at his prom. If he got a bad grade, they blamed the teacher. Brianna, 4 years my junior, was the star. Dance classes, summer camps, a wardrobe full of matching sets and accessories. My mother called her my little swan. She got braces before her teeth even needed them. If she wanted to quit ballet halfway through the semester, nobody blinked. They'd just find her a new hobby. Logan, the youngest, got by on being quiet. The house was chaotic, so he retreated into his room, headphones clamped on. Whenever there was tension, a missed mortgage payment, a fight about money, he'd end up with a new video game console to keep him happy. It worked. He barely spoke, but he was never left out. And me, I was the one who didn't cause trouble. I picked up shifts at the grocery store the day I turned 16, handed over half my paycheck every week, and saved the rest for school supplies. I did my own laundry, packed my own lunch. No one ever asked if I wanted to join the school play or the track team. I learned early that being low maintenance was my role, and I filled it well. For as long as I can remember, I was the one fixing things. That's not an exaggeration. I'd find my father at the kitchen table late at night, bills spread everywhere, head in his hands. "You're good at this, Liz. Can you check the math?" he'd ask. So I did, unpaid, unnoticed, but essential. But even then, there were cracks. I remember one Christmas when my mother promised we'd finally take a family vacation, Disney World, just like the commercials. I watched her circle package deals in the Sunday paper. We never went. The money was needed for Ethan's car insurance, and I was told maybe next year. I stopped asking. In high school, my friends started noticing. "You're always working," my best friend said once. "Don't your parents help out?" I shrugged. "It's just how things are." I didn't know any different. The day I got my acceptance letter from Rutgers with a partial scholarship, my mother hugged me tight, but her voice was tight too. "Don't go too far, okay? We'll need you around." I promised I'd visit, knowing full well it was more for their peace of mind than mine. That summer, as I packed boxes for my dorm room, I watched Ethan take his new car for a spin, Brianna FaceTiming friends in her freshly painted room, Logan tearing open the latest gaming system. I wasn't jealous, at least that's what I told myself. I just wanted someone to notice that I was leaving. My last night at home, my father stopped by my door. "You'll always have a place here," he said, standing in the doorway, voice softer than usual. But I knew even then that my place was conditional, invisible, defined by how useful I could be. As the train pulled away from the station, Rutgers bound, I felt a strange mix of freedom and guilt. For the first time, I wondered if there was a way to be loved for just being me, not for what I could do or fix or pay for. I'd learn the answer eventually. But not before paying the price. Rutgers University, New Jersey. 2012. I was 22 and crossing the graduation stage with honors, the first in my family to finish college. The crowd was a blur, parents, with cameras, graduates tossing caps, but I could only spot my mother's bright red coat waving frantically and my father clapping just a beat behind everyone else. I thought maybe things would change now. Maybe with a real job in New York, I'd finally have space to be more than the responsible one. That summer, I moved into a tiny apartment in Paramus, halfway between my family and Brooklyn, where I'd just landed a consulting job. The salary was $88,000, a number that felt huge and impossible. I bought my own sheets and kitchenware, opened a checking account, and memorized the train schedule to Manhattan. For the first time, my paychecks were mine, or so I thought. It didn't take long before the old patterns followed me. My first month on the job, my father called about the mortgage. Just a small thing, Liz. We're short $2,400. We'll pay you back. I wanted to say no, but I transferred the money. It was only money, I told myself. Not even 3 weeks later, Ethan sideswiped a mailbox and wrecked the family car. Insurance only covered half, he told me on the phone, sounding sheepish for the first time in years. Can you spot us $1,800? I agreed because that's what I did. Brianna called next, all excitement. She'd enrolled in a marketing course, $3,600 up front. It'll launch my influencer brand, she promised. You'll get it back, promise. She never finished the course. Logan, always the quiet one, sent me a text with a link to a gaming computer, $4,000. It's for school, he wrote. All my friends have one. My mother followed up, Logan doesn't ask for much. He's been good lately. Another transfer. I rationalized each one, just a blip, just a one-time emergency. It never ended. Every few weeks, another crisis. Water heater broke, $7,500. Roof leak, $12,000. Suddenly, the family house got a new sectional couch and oversized TV upgrades that didn't quite add up with the barely scraping by stories I kept hearing. Still, I tried to stay hopeful. I believed each time that this would be the last ask. I even spent evenings building a financial independence plan for the whole family. I put together spreadsheets, color-coded budgets, even scheduled a dinner to walk everyone through my plan. I ordered takeout, set the table, printed handouts. They listened politely, but I could feel the room cooling. My father was silent. My mother frowned. Brianna scrolled on her phone. Logan shrugged. Ethan laughed. Alyssa, you're such a numbers nerd. The meeting ended early. No one mentioned it again. Afterward, my mother took me aside. Honey, you worry too much. Family helps family. Let us handle things our way. It was always that. My help was only welcome on their terms. I went home that night and stared at my budget spreadsheet, red numbers blinking back at me. My apartment felt smaller than ever. Days blurred into years. The emergencies kept coming, always urgent, always my responsibility. I was proud of my career, but it never felt like my life was really my own. I tried dating, tried hobbies, but everything seemed to orbit around the next family call, the next check to write. Sometimes late at night, I'd wonder if this was what love was supposed to feel like, never quite enough, always one step away from failing someone. I kept telling myself I was building a bridge for all of us to walk across. I didn't know that bridge only went one way. Still, every time the phone rang, I answered. I couldn't help myself. Summer slipped into fall in Paramus. I was 31, a decade into my job, and my family's calls had settled into a familiar rhythm. The emergencies never really changed, only grew larger in scope. What shifted was something in me, a tiredness. I couldn't shake a question that kept scratching at the back of my mind. Was I actually helping or just enabling a cycle? It started with a new round of house repairs. The roof needs more work, my father said, voice weary but rehearsed. The contractor says $12,000 this time. It's worse than we thought. Last year the bill had been $7,500. This year, it ballooned. I transferred the money anyway, but my stomach twisted. A week later, I visited home for Sunday dinner. The living room was different, new Italian leather sofa, 65-inch television on the wall, Brianna bragging about her side hustle influencer photos. My mother floated around in a new designer blouse. Logan hunched in the corner, barely looked up from his upgraded gaming setup. I tried not to let it show, but I started to notice details. My father's watch glinted gold in the light. There was a fresh coat of paint in the dining room. The refrigerator, always half empty when I was a kid, was now packed with groceries I never bought. There were bakery pastries on the table instead of homemade cookies. For a moment, I wondered if things had finally turned around until my mother pulled me aside. Just a heads up, Liz. The property taxes went up again. It's always something. I nodded, but inside I felt a wall go up. That night, as I helped clear the table, I overheard Brianna whisper to my mother in the hallway. "She's so controlling. She always wants to know where the money goes." My mother just sighed. "She's always been like this. Always has to be in charge." I froze, a stack of plates in my hands. For the first time, I realized the story they told themselves about me was different from the one I'd lived. To them, I was the meddler, the outsider, the one who made things difficult. My help had become an expectation, not a kindness. Determined to make things right, I brought up my financial planning tools after dinner. I offered to help organize a real budget to teach anyone who wanted to learn. My father cut me off. "We're not children, Alyssa. We don't need to justify every penny to you." My mother's eyes narrowed. The room grew cold. Logan slipped away, headphones back on. Brianna and Ethan both checked their phones, not meeting my eyes. I let the subject drop. There was nothing more to say. I packed my things and drove back to Brooklyn, headlights slicing through the dark. My mind raced with memories, birthdays I'd spent, working, holidays where I paid for dinner, years of emergency calls. Suddenly, I wasn't sure any of it had meant what I thought it did. A few days later, Uncle Frank called. His voice was low, full of warning. "Alyssa, you keep doing for them, they're never going to stand on their own. I tried telling your parents, but they don't listen." I appreciated his honesty, but it made everything feel heavier. If even Uncle Frank had given up, what hope was left? That week, I decided to experiment. I waited a few extra days to answer the next request for help. When I finally replied, my mother's tone was sharper than usual. "If you can't do it, just say so. Don't string us along." It was as if years of support meant nothing the moment I faltered. I should have seen it coming when they refused to even talk about money anymore. The pattern was clear now. My usefulness was my only ticket in. Without it, I was just another problem to be managed. Back in Brooklyn, I opened my budgeting spreadsheet and stared at the blinking cursor. I wanted so badly to fix it all, to find a formula that made everyone happy. But some equations don't balance, no matter how many times you run the numbers. I shut my laptop and sat in the quiet, feeling the loneliness settle in. The family I'd tried so hard to save didn't want saving. They just wanted what I could give. And for the first time, I wondered what would happen if I stopped. Winter always made Paramus feel smaller. The days turned gray, the nights were sharp and silent. By the end of 2021, I was restless, tired of waiting for something to change. I had just returned to Brooklyn after a tense Christmas, telling myself again that maybe next year things would be different. But something was shifting deep down. I was ready to draw a line. It started with an email from my bank. "New account activity detected." I clicked, half expecting to see a routine charge. Instead, there was a new loan, $40,000 taken out in my name. My chest tightened. I knew immediately I hadn't authorized any loan. My heart pounded as I opened the document. My name, my social security number, my signature, except the signature was off, the Y in Alyssa curling the wrong way. It was a scan, not my handwriting. I called the bank. They confirmed the application came from my parents' address. I sat at my desk in Brooklyn, hands shaking, the Manhattan skyline, nothing but gray haze outside my window. I tried to steady my breath. This was no small favor. This was fraud. I called my father first. He didn't pick up, so I tried my mother. Her voice was tight, almost rehearsed. "We had no choice, Liz. Your father's business hit a rough patch. We thought we could pay it back before you noticed. It's just a temporary thing." "A temporary thing?" "It's $40,000 in my name. Why didn't anyone ask me?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "You're good with money. You always land on your feet." I felt heat rush to my face. "That's not the point, Mom. You forged my signature. That's a crime." She bristled. "Don't be dramatic, Alyssa. Family helps family. We needed you." I tried Ethan. He claimed not to know anything. Brianna's reply was a single text: "Sorry, busy. Mom's handling it." Logan didn't answer at all. For the first time, I realized nobody was on my side. The line between help and use had vanished, replaced by expectation and entitlement. I gathered my documents, screenshots of the loan emails from the bank, every transfer I'd made for the past 10 years. I emailed everything to myself, then called Uncle Frank. "Freeze your credit," he advised. "Don't send another dollar. You have to protect yourself now." I spent that night locking down my accounts, changing every password, and setting up credit alerts. My phone buzzed again, my mother, a voicemail this time. Her voice cracked, pleading. "Alyssa, please just help us this one last time. Your father's blood pressure can't take any more stress." I listened, but I didn't reply. Instead, I sat in the dark, replaying every call, every text, every moment I'd tried to hold our family together. I saw now how one-sided it all was. The next morning, I wrote a simple message to the family group chat. "I can't help financially anymore. I need you to respect this." I deleted the chat as soon as I sent it, hands trembling. For the first time, I made a choice for myself. I walked to the window, looking down at the snow-covered street below. The world outside was quiet, almost peaceful. I felt grief, but beneath it a strange sense of relief. The chain had finally snapped. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at my kitchen table, papers spread before me. It was time to start protecting myself. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew with absolute certainty that I could never go back. Early spring in Brooklyn always feels like starting over. The streets outside my apartment turned wet and noisy, yellow cabs splashing water at the curb. I spent mornings at my desk staring at spreadsheets, answering emails, trying to focus on anything except the void left behind after I cut my family off. The aftermath of my decision was swift and sharp. My phone barely stopped buzzing, voicemails from my mother, text messages from Brianna, silent calls from Ethan's number, and even one from Logan at 3 in the morning that I let go to voicemail. Each message was a new guilt trip, a different tactic. My mother's voice on the phone, low and desperate. "Alyssa, you're abandoning us. How could you do this?" Brianna's text. "You know mom's not well. Ethan's barely working. Logan can't afford school stuff." Uncle Frank, blunt as ever, texted. "Don't back down. Boundaries are healthy." I took his advice. I froze every joint account, changed every password, and set up alerts for any suspicious activity. I even emailed the family. "From now on, I can't send money. I need to take care of myself." I reread the draft 4 times before pressing send. At first, I felt guilty. It was as if I'd betrayed them. I replayed every call, every time my mother praised me for being the strong one, every time I'd written a check with shaking hands. But I kept telling myself I have nothing to be ashamed of. The weeks crawled by. The house was quieter now, the only sounds my own footsteps, the hum of the refrigerator, the city outside my window. For the first time, I made dinner for one, sat at my kitchen table, and ate in silence. Jenna, my assistant, noticed my change in mood. She invited me out for drinks after work, and I surprised myself by saying yes. For once, I let myself talk about something other than my family. Still, every Sunday I expected a call. Every birthday I checked my phone for a message. Most weekends there was nothing. When I did hear from them, the messages had changed, short-clipped, sometimes angry, sometimes sad. "You've turned your back on your own blood," Brianna wrote. My father barely replied, just a thumbs up or a short okay. Logan went completely silent. Uncle Frank called a few times. "You did the right thing, kid," he told me. "They'll have to grow up." His words were a small comfort, a reminder that not every family member saw me as a wallet. One Friday night, Jenna and I sat at a rooftop bar in Brooklyn, city lights sparkling around us. "You know," she said, "not everyone would have had the guts to do what you did. Most people just keep giving until they have nothing left." I wanted to believe her. I tried. That night, as I crawled into bed, I let myself feel something besides shame, relief. The world hadn't ended. I was still here. I woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through my window. For the first time in years, I slept straight through the night. No emergency calls, no demands, no drama. I made coffee, sat with my thoughts, and for a brief moment felt free. Early summer in Paramus felt strangely foreign to me now. The world outside kept spinning, flowers blooming along the sidewalk, neighbors power washing their driveways, school kids riding bikes, but inside I was learning to live with a silence I never expected. It happened on an ordinary Thursday morning. I was at my desk in Brooklyn, coffee cooling at my elbow, when my phone lit up. A new group text, same thread as always, but the message stopped me cold. "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore, at all." It was the final stroke, an echo of the warning shot I'd already seen coming for months. I sat frozen eyes glued to the screen, waiting for a follow-up, some explanation, some crack of warmth. Nothing came. Just those 13 words, a digital wall thrown up overnight. I called my mother. Voicemail. I tried my father, then Brianna, then Ethan, then Logan. No answer. Not a single word from any of them, not even a missed call or text. I left messages short, awkward, stumbling over my own tongue, but nobody replied. That week, my Facebook lit up with silence. One by one, each family member unfriended me. My birthday came and went without so much as a text. Old photos vanished from my feed. Group chats went quiet, then disappeared. It was like being erased one pixel at a time. For days, I walked through Brooklyn in a daze. I called Uncle Frank. He listened quietly, let me get it all out. I tried talking sense into them, he said. Some people don't want to hear the truth, Alyssa. You didn't do anything wrong. I thanked him, though the words felt hollow. Grief took up residence in my apartment. It wasn't the loud kind, the sobbing, pillow-punching, tear-streaked kind. It was quiet. The kind that sits heavy in your chest, shows up when you least expect it, standing in line at the grocery store, riding the subway, waking up at 3 in the morning for no reason at all. I started seeing a therapist. At first, I didn't know what to say. My family cut me off, I blurted out at our first meeting, but it feels like I'm the one who did the cutting. She nodded, patient and calm. It's okay to grieve the family you wish you had, she told me. Sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. I spent a lot of evenings alone. I deleted the group chat, erased their numbers from my favorites, took down the last family photo from my fridge. Some nights I scrolled through old texts, reading and rereading the words, searching for the place it all went wrong. I kept coming back to the same truth: I could only control my part. I couldn't save anyone who didn't want saving. The only person who reached out was Uncle Frank. He sent an email every few weeks, no pressure, just checking in, reminding me I wasn't alone. Sometimes he'd call to share a story from his own childhood or just to hear about my week. Each call reminded me that not every family bond breaks under pressure. Work became my anchor. Jenna noticed the change: how I threw myself into projects, stayed late, picked up extra clients. She never asked about my family, but sometimes she'd bring me a cup of coffee or leave a note on my desk. "You've got this," she scribbled on a post-it one Friday afternoon. I kept it in my wallet. I learned to find comfort in routine: Sunday morning walks to the bakery, rooftop dinners on warm evenings, the ritual of watering the little plants on my windowsill. Each small habit became a stepping stone out of grief, a marker on the path to something new. But the quiet justice of it all, the real closure, wasn't in revenge or confrontation. It was in reclaiming my space, my time, my peace. I didn't need an apology to move on. I just needed to know I had finally drawn the line. One night, I made a simple dinner, set the table for one, and ate in silence. For the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom, not loss. Fall in Brooklyn brought a crispness to the air and a sense of possibility I hadn't felt in a long time. My apartment was still small, but it was mine. The plants on my windowsill thrived. I hung a new print above my couch, a blank canvas, wide open and waiting. The months since the band passed slowly but steadily. I poured myself into work, earned a promotion, and even took a short vacation to upstate New York with friends, my first real break in years. I bought groceries for myself, cooked meals I actually wanted to eat, and rediscovered what it felt like to wake up without dread. I saw Uncle Frank on FaceTime most weekends. He'd tell me stories about old family barbecues, ask about my job, or give advice on which plants survived New Jersey winters. He never pushed, never judged. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence, drinking coffee on our separate screens. Jenna and I became closer. She celebrated my promotion with a rooftop barbecue, just a few friends, music playing low, the city skyline stretching out in the distance. For the first time, I felt like I belonged somewhere of my own choosing. I spent time reflecting, journaling, trying to understand what I wanted my life to look like now. I realized I could choose my own family, friends, mentors, people who wanted me for who I was, not for what I could give. I started calling them my chosen family. It felt right. One evening, as the leaves turned gold and the city glowed at sunset, I received an email from my mother. The subject line was simple: "Hope you're well." The message inside was short: no request for money, no apology, just a single line wishing me health and happiness. I read it twice, then closed my laptop. I didn't reply. Instead, I stepped out onto my rooftop, the city humming below. I breathed in the autumn air, letting it fill my lungs. I thought about all the years I spent chasing approval, measuring my worth by what I could provide. Now, for the first time, I felt whole without it. I took out my journal and wrote, "For the first time, I chose myself." And that was enough. That night, standing under the Brooklyn sky, I realized family isn't just who you're born to. It's who shows up, who stays, who makes you feel safe and seen. Maybe I had lost my old family, but in their place, I had built something new. And in that space, I found peace. The silence after losing a family can be deafening. For months, it filled every corner of my Brooklyn apartment. At first, it was all I could hear: the absence of group chats, the empty inbox on birthdays, the missing calls on holidays. Each quiet Sunday morning brought memories rushing back: my mother's laughter as she arranged pastries on the table, my father's stories about his next big idea, the noise of my siblings as they tumbled in and out of the house. I used to think those little moments defined what it meant to belong. But belonging, I've learned, is more than tradition or obligation. It's not about the number of photos on the fridge or the years of shared meals. Sometimes it's about who stays when the world gets quiet, who reaches out, who remembers you when there's nothing left to give. That lesson didn't come easy. The months after my family banished me were the hardest I'd ever faced. There were nights I lay awake replaying every call, every transfer, every chance I'd given them to do better. I grieved not only the loss of my family, but the loss of the role I played for so long. Without the constant responsibility, I struggled to recognize myself. In those quiet moments, though, I started to discover parts of me I'd put on hold. I signed up for an art class, painting messy, imperfect canvases in a studio filled with strangers who soon became friends. I tried new recipes, burnt some, perfected others. I called Uncle Frank every Sunday morning, and together we laughed about family quirks and swapped advice on everything from houseplants to home repairs. I learned how to ask for help, a skill I'd never truly practiced. Therapy became a weekly lifeline. My therapist listened as I sifted through guilt and sadness, helping me see how patterns of giving and receiving get written into our bones. "You can honor your past without living in it," she told me one day. Those words became a mantra on days when loneliness crept in, whispering old stories of unworthiness. Slowly, my apartment changed, reflecting the new shape of my life. The fridge filled with photos from rooftop dinners and Saturday hikes. My windowsill overflowed with succulents and basil. The wall where my family portrait once hung became a collage of moments. I chose for myself a concert ticket, a postcard from Jenna, a sticky note with Uncle Frank's favorite joke. Work too shifted. I no longer stayed late just to avoid coming home to emptiness. Instead, I took time to mentor younger colleagues, teaching them what I wish I'd learned sooner: that boundaries are not a sign of selfishness, but a roadmap to self-respect. Jenna became not just an assistant, but a friend, one who showed up for birthdays, listened on tough days, and celebrated every small victory. The hardest part wasn't the quiet, it was learning to forgive. Not for my family's sake, but for my own. Forgiving them meant accepting what they could never give, letting go of hopes for an apology or a change of heart. It meant forgiving myself too for all the years I let guilt define my choices. Some days I still think about reaching out. On holidays, I sometimes type a message and never hit send. Other days, the ache feels smaller, replaced by gratitude for the family I built: friends, colleagues, Uncle Frank, people who see me, not just my usefulness. If you're watching this and you recognize your story in mine, I want you to know it's not selfish to draw the line. It's not unloving to say enough. We teach others how to treat us, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the roles that no longer fit. My hope is that you'll share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me, have you ever had to choose boundaries over belonging? How did you move forward? What advice would you give your younger self or your own children? If you found any comfort or clarity here, I'd love for you to subscribe. I share stories for those of us learning to build a life from scratch, one that honors both where we came from and where we're headed. So here's to new beginnings, chosen families, and the quiet, powerful courage it takes to start again. For the first time, I wake up knowing I'm enough, no matter who calls or doesn't. Thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me share my story.